Hello and welcome to another GnuCash Quick Start tutorial. I'm Laura from thebusybpost.com, and in today's Quick Start tutorial I will show you step by step how to set up and manage inventory cost of goods sold in GnuCash. If you like my tutorials and find them helpful, please subscribe and don't forget to give a thumbs up. Let's begin. It's a good idea to set up a practice account to follow along with this tutorial. Setting up inventory in GnuCash involves a few steps because GnuCash doesn't have a dedicated inventory module like some other accounting software do. However, you can still manage your inventory using a combination of accounts. It all begins with Step 1. Create the inventory asset account. In this first step, we will create the inventory asset account you will use to track the inventory. Begin by selecting the Assets account and then Current Assets account in the chart of accounts. And then select New on the toolbar. And when the dialog box opens, enter a name for the account, such as inventory. I always like to keep things simple. Enter description if you like. Set the account type as asset if it is not already selected by default, as shown here. Then scroll down and select OK to create the account. Here I have the newly created inventory asset account. In step 2, we will create the cost of goods sold expense account. We will begin by creating the cost of goods sold subcategory by clicking on the expense category to highlight it and then select New on the toolbar. When the dialog box opens, enter a name for the account, such as cost of goods sold. In this example, I just entered COGS. Enter a description if you like, and select the account type, expense, if it is not already selected by default. And then scroll down and click on OK to create the account and finish up. Here I have my cost of goods sold subcategory expense account. Next, we need to create expense accounts for the inventory items you want to track. In this example, the business owner purchases t-shirts and mugs from a wholesale vendor to sell to the general public. To create the inventory expense accounts, select the cost of goods sold subcategory account you just created by clicking on it to highlight it and then New on the toolbar. You should create an account for each item you sell. I will create an account for the two items the business owner sells, t-shirts and coffee mugs. Here I have the two resale products listed under the cost of goods sold. T-shirts and coffee mugs. Step 3. Entering the inventory assets purchases. When you purchase inventory, you'll need to record these transactions correctly in the system to ensure your inventory assets and your cost of goods sold accounts are updated accurately and are in balance. In this next step, we will create a vendor bill for the receipt received for purchase inventory assets paid in full. The fact that we will be using the vendor bills feature in GnuCash means we will be working through the GnuCash accounts payable system only for the purpose of entering detailed information on the purchase, such as how many items purchased and the cost of each item. Before we can create a vendor bill, you need to have the vendor's profile set up in the system. If not, we can create it now by selecting Business on the menu bar and then Vendor, then New Vendor. When the dialog box opens, enter the vendor's name in the company text field box and then scroll down and enter the address. and select OK to finish up. Next, we need to create the bill. Select Business on the menu bar, and then Vendor, and then New Bill. On the New Bill dialog box that appears, enter the first few letters of the vendor's name in the text box, and GnuCash will try to auto-complete the entry for you by displaying possible matches. Select the one that applies, or if that doesn't work, you can click on the Select tab to search for and select the vendor. Then scroll down and select OK. Here on the bill screen is where you fill in detailed information about the inventory purchase. In the date field, modify the date as needed. In the description field, enter a description. Here is where I will enter t-shirts. In the action field, you can leave it blank or you can choose an option. I will select material. In the expense account transfer field, here is where it's very important that you select the inventory assets account. Next, enter the quantity purchased and the unit price. And then you can gently tap on the subtotal cell to display the amount before proceeding to the next step. When finished, scroll up to the toolbar and select Post. If you don't see the post icon, look for the drop-down arrow. Click on it to reveal the hidden menu and select Post. When the dialog box appears, select Yes to save it. When the dialog box appears asking if you really want to post the invoice, select OK. Then go back to the toolbar and this time select Pay. Now you should be on the payment process screen. Check it over and make sure everything looks correct. Then scroll over to the transfer field and select the checking account and OK to finish up and close out. Now let's look at what we've accomplished so far and how it affects the chart of accounts. To recap, number 1, we created the inventory asset account. Number 2, we created the inventory expense accounts. Number 3, we entered the amount purchased and the cost of the inventory assets. Now here I have a side-by-side comparison of where I started at in the chart of accounts and where I am now. What you will notice is that the total assets, including the checking account assets, was $1,110 when I started. Now the checking account has a balance of only $870.40 because it has been reduced by the dollar amount used to purchase inventory. I started out with nothing in the inventory assets account. It now displays $239.60 worth of resellable stock items. And when you add the $870.40 left in the checking account with the inventory assets account, the business still owns $1,110 in assets, which means everything is in balance. And we can proceed to the next step. Now that I have the wholesale cost of the t-shirts, I'm going to take a moment and edit the product account and enter that information alongside the title so that if I needed that information at the spur of the moment, I don't have to search for it. Step 4. How to track sales and the cost of goods sold. Once you sell inventory, number 1, you need to record the inventory sale, which we can do by creating an invoice. In this example, the business owner sold 25 of the t-shirts he had in inventory. With the customer's profile set up in the system and ready for invoicing, Select Business on the menu bar, and then Customer, and then New Invoice. And when the New Invoice dialog box opens, select the customer and scroll down and select OK to finish up. On the invoice screen, modify the date if needed and enter a description. Here's where I will enter t-shirts. You can select an option in the action field if you like. It is an optional field, so you can simply leave it blank. In the income account field, select the income account that applies to this sale. Here's where I will select sales income and enter the quantity and unit price. Enter any other information you need to and scroll up to the toolbar and select Post. And when the dialog box appears, select Yes, you want to save the changes. And when the dialog box appears asking if you really want to post the invoice, select OK. Then scroll up to the toolbar and this time select Pay. And when the payment process screen opens, select the checking account as the transfer account and select OK. If you need more detailed information on creating invoices, because I know I kind of ran through it, you can check out my tutorial on creating invoices in GnuCash 5.0. In this next step, we will track the sold products in the inventory assets account. The purpose of tracking the sold items in inventory is to generate the cost of goods sold. Begin by selecting the inventory assets account. Inside the inventory assets account, you should see the dollar amount of your inventory purchases. In this example, I see the $239.60 inventory purchase. To enter the sold inventory transactions, in the date field, modify the date if you need to. And in the description field, enter a description about the cost of goods sold. Here is where I will enter t-shirts and the sold amount. You can enter as much information about the transaction as you need to. In the transfer field, select the cost of goods expense account that applies to this sale. Here is where I will select the t-shirt expense account. Next, we need to enter into the decrease field the total cost of the sold products. There's no need to pull out a calculator. Thanks to GnuCash's built-in calculation feature, we can use standard calculation symbols to arrive at the total cost. For example, 25 t-shirts were sold. The cost of the t-shirts are $5.99 each. I know that because I listed the price across from the title to help me remember without having to look up the price. I will enter 25 and the asterisk symbol to multiply the sold amount by the cost of the product, which is $5.99. And now all I have to do is hit the tab key on the keyboard. The total cost of goods sold is automatically entered into the cell. Now I like that feature. It's a good idea at this point to select Enter and Save on the toolbar, which is something you should be mindful of just in case a blackout occurs or anything unexpected. If you saved your work along the way from time to time, you can avoid losing all your hard work. Now it's time to verify that everything is working correctly. I will begin by selecting Reports on the menu bar, and then Income and Expense, and then Profit and Loss. Here on the Profit and Loss report, The business's sales revenue is $323.75. 25 t-shirts were sold at the retail price of $12.95. And 25 times $12.95 equals $323.75. Correct. Under the expenses account, I have the cost of goods sold, which would be the 25 t-shirts purchased at the wholesale price of $5.99 each, equals $149.75. Correct. According to this report, after all the expenses have been taken into account, including the cost of goods sold, the business only has a profit of $84. By tracking the inventory purchases and the sold goods in GnuCash, you get a more accurate picture of whether the business is making a profit or not. Now, back on the chart of accounts, I can see that the cost of goods expense subcategory account is displaying the total cost of the goods sold to date, which includes all the inventory items listed under this expense category. And the inventory assets account is being reduced by the sold inventory products, which is confirmation that everything is working correctly. Knowing your cost of goods sold, you will find, is invaluable information, especially at tax time. GnuCash may not tell you what you have in your physical inventory, but it can tell you how much you should have in stock based on your purchase and sold amounts you have on record. Periodically, you should count your physical inventory and adjust your GnuCash records if you need to reflect the actual quantities on hand. That's it. If you like my tutorials and find them helpful, please subscribe and don't forget to give a thumbs up. See you in the next video.